Hi, my name is Rebecca Thompson-Hitt. I'm the founder and executive director of the Consciously Parenting Project. And I'm here today to talk to you about the Brain Stoplight. The Brain Stoplight is a tool that I developed a number of years ago to help parents understand those inconsistencies that we see in behavior. From the time that our kids are little and we're thinking, oh, you're so smart, and then all of a sudden they're not. And same for us. There are times where we are brilliant, where things are just humming along and we are solving the problems of the world. And then there are times we can barely tie our own shoes. So what is going on there? So I did a workshop with Dr. Bruce Perry, who's a psychiatrist and a brain researcher, a clinician. He works a lot with traumatized children, and he was explaining that we have really 5 parts of our brain. And those 5 parts of our brain are all responsible for different things. I took that information, condensed it down, used the triune brain, which is the 3-part brain, just to simplify the information because I wanted it to be applicable. I wanted parents to be able to take the information and use it. And I realized when we started looking at the triune brain that, like a stoplight, it had 3 parts. And so those 3 parts are the 3 parts of the brain. So we have our thinking brain, which is our green light. This is the place where we have access to our full IQ. If we have an IQ of 100, then average IQ, then we're there when we're on green. And that's important for us to remember because this is the time where we're thinking well, we're making good decisions, we're problem solving. And it's also where our kids are going to be at their best space that they can make changes, where they can have a conversation, they can problem solve with you. It's significant because they're not always there, and neither are you. So when we are, and so here in this part of our brain, we're going to be able to connect with each other. This is a nice time. We like green. The challenge is that because we're not always on green, we say, oh, wait, I'm leaving green and that's bad. But yellow isn't bad. Yellow is our emotional brain, and the emotional brain is responsible for it's the place where we connect actually most deeply with one another. If you've ever had a really, really bad day and you've had a friend who's able to just sit with you and listen, and maybe they don't try to fix it, maybe you need someone to help you fix it, but you really feel seen and heard and felt, that's the emotional brain, and that creates a strong glue in relationships. It's really an important space. And as parents, we don't want to neglect this space because this is the place where your kids are cuddled up to you. This is the space where everybody is finding their way. And it's not green, but it is an important space for connection. My 3rd book is called Nurturing Connection, and it's all about this part of the brain. So I have, so if you are in this yellow area of your brain, the emotional part of your brain, you lose access to about 25 IQ points. So if you have 100, now you're at about 75. This is important because if you ever saw the movie Forrest Gump is right there at about 70. And while he's lovable and amazing, and then one day he just started running, it's not necessarily our best thoughts, our best, putting things together and making sense of things. That's for this part of our brain. But this part of our brain is very important. I also look at this as the fork in the road. So if we recognize that, someone is exhibiting signs of that yellow light space and we slow down, then we can really deeply connect with one another. And that's significant and substantial and important, and we need that space for our relationships. But we often miss those early signs that someone is in yellow, or we misinterpret it and we look at it. And sometimes, okay, honestly, when a kid is throwing something at you, that may be their yellow, and that may put you right in red. And so you miss the opportunity to connect with them and help them to regulate because now you're in red. Or they quickly go through yellow and they're in red because that's the pattern that they have in their nervous system. So red is when we move out of these parts of our brain and we're back in the survival part of our brain. So that's the fight, flight, or freeze response. This is a very primitive part of the brain. Its job is to keep you alive. The challenge is that keeping you alive when you are looking at a 2-year-old who you feel is a threat to you in some way, and now you are in this part of your brain, is not good for us. It's great for saber-toothed tigers. It's great if you have a crocodile on your doorstep or an alligator where I live in Florida. You know, these things require you to not think. And what happens is that there's no neural activity. There's like kind of crickets here going on in your brain when this part of your brain is activated. And so that's really important to realize. You are not going to make good decisions on red. You are going to repeat patterns. You're going to repeat the things that were done to you. There's not thought that goes into it. And that's important for you to know. When you're back here, you're not thinking, and neither are your kids. And so what may look like, you know, behavior that is just to get under your skin may actually be your child being in survival, being in their fight response or their flight response where they're just running. So energy is mobilized into the arms and into the legs in these brain states. And so, and away from the head right here where you would think, you know what, that's a bad idea to do that. And you are ready to fight and protect yourself, or you're ready to run. Energy moves away from the core of your body. It's a full-on body response. And so you're not thinking. And it's really important to recognize when this is happening and recognize what everybody looks like in your family on the different brainwave states or in these different states. So when you're on green, when you're on yellow, when you're on red, what do you look like? What does your child look like? What are the signs that you may have misinterpreted that your child is actually in red and they really need you, or they're on yellow and they really, really need you to just snuggle in and slow down? Because back to our brain stoplight, when we see yellow, we have a choice. We can either slow down or we can speed up. If we slow down, we don't go through a red light at an intersection and we don't risk getting hit by another car. And, you know, like, we all know this, but sometimes we do it anyway. Sometimes we see the light and we're like, you know what, I cannot sit here for another 5 minutes at this light. And that's the same thing that happens in parenting. And when you hit red, it just means stop. And in the brain, you're no longer processing words when you're in red. And so the best case is to stop or find a way to move through the energy that was just mobilized in your body through the fight or the flight response. We need to move and not try to have a conversation or solve it. So green light, have a conversation, explain it, talk about solutions. Yellow light, snuggle in, find a way to touch, use eye contact, find ways to be together. Red light, stop talking, stop trying to explain things to them, stop trying to explain things yourself, because the things that come out of your mouth aren't going to be helpful in this part of your brain. And so find ways to regulate yourself, regulate your kids. And when you're back in yellow, when you're back on green, then have the conversation. So let me know if you have any questions after watching the video. This is something that I want you to just spend some time with, looking at yourself, looking at your family and seeing how this shows up for you. It looks different in every family and the patterns are different. Sometimes it's the kid who's on red first. Sometimes it's the parent who's on red first. But what do we do and how can we reconnect with each other and get ourselves out of that survival part of the brain? So thanks for watching and we'll see you on the next video.